introduce to you our current resident bishop for the Oklahoma area, the Oklahoma Annual Conference, Bishop Jimmy Nunn, who came to us last fall. Actually, he was appointed into the Oklahoma area on September the 1st and became our bishop at that point. And he is the bishop over, I guess about 600 churches he supervises, actually, about 500 in the Oklahoma Annual Conference, and then also a number of in the Oklahoma Indian Missionary Conference. He comes to us from West Texas. Anybody ever been out to Lubbock? A few folks, you know where Lubbock is. Well, he was born just a little north of Lubbock, and he was a pastor in Northwest Texas, and then a district superintendent, and most recently, he been the director of mission and administration there in the Northwest Texas Conference before he was elected bishop last year at our jurisdictional conference. And so it's our privilege and a pleasure to have him here to help us to celebrate our 34th anniversary here as United Methodist Church of the Good Shepherd. This time, would you welcome Bishop Nunn?
Happy birthday, church. Thank you, Michael, for the invitation. Have you heard this before? Boy, this is quite a run. I think I just finished preaching a minute ago, and we ran down, and you do this every week, so it's like, woo-wee. Boy, howdy. I've got to take my breath now, Isaac. I thought you'd take the offering again or something, but but I guess not. So here we are. So anyway, it is great to be here with you all today. It's a wonderful 34th anniversary, 34th birthday. I do want to say my wife Mary is with me. She's over here kind of by this little side door. So we've been traveling together. So this is the third run on this sermon too. By now, actually the first time, but by now she can do this better than I can, which would be obvious. So anyway, but I really do love and appreciate her, and we're both delighted to be here with you today. Today, now what's the name of this church again? I am all over the place, but this is what is it? The Good Shepherd United Methodist Church. That's right, the Good Shepherd. And so this text from the 10th chapter of John is about the Good Shepherd. And really the Good Shepherd is something we hear today and we think, oh yeah, we understand that every shepherd is good. We understand the Good Shepherd. But in biblical days, and in the day that Jesus said this, people would say, huh? Because the Good Shepherd was actually an oxymoron. Now, what is an oxymoron? Since we're going to have lunch in a few minutes, I thought I would use some lunch examples. How many of you have heard of boneless ribs? Yeah, that's an oxymoron. How about hot chili? Another one. Jumbo shrimp. That's an oxymoron. Now, what we'll say after we've eaten was, that was awfully good, provided there was no freezer burn. So now I could go on and on, but we're going to eat after I'm finished. I think I'll just move on. Is that okay? I think it would be. It'd be good. So anyway, the Good Shepherd was something that people in Bible days did not, it was not on their radar. You never put the two words together. They were polar opposites. No shepherd was ever good. In fact, in the time that Jesus was born at Christmas, why would God send the message through the angel to the shepherds? Shepherds in that day and time were forbidden by law from selling milk or meat because it was assumed they had stolen it. Their testimony was not allowed in court because everybody thought they're liars. And so good shepherds were not to be heard of. And even in the book of Ezekiel, some centuries before Christ, God is most upset with the shepherds, the pastors, because they are not doing what they're supposed to do. They're taking advantage of people. And God said, I'm going to have to come myself and be a good shepherd, because he couldn't find any around the world that were good shepherds. Well, times have changed a little bit, haven't they? And thank God for that. So today we have the Good Shepherd, and I want to think together about three things that jump out at this passage for me. And the first one comes to us in context, but I want to go back and just refresh us of that first verse in verse 11 of the 10th chapter. Jesus said, I am the Good Shepherd. The Good Shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. So what's the context of this scripture? In John chapter 9, there's a man who Jesus happens upon. This man was born blind. When he came into this world, he had no sight. He had never had sight in his entire life. And some of the folks who were really trying to trap Jesus asked this question. They said, who sinned, this man or his parents, that this man was born blind? Well, that is a bad shepherd question. Who sinned, this man or his parents, that caused him to be born blind? Well, Jesus set that straight really quickly. Neither one of those were the case. Instead, this was an opportunity for the glory of God to be displayed. And so it wasn't about all that stuff. And Jesus determined at that moment to heal this man. So he knelt down, he gathered some dust together. Now this is in my imagination. It does say though that Jesus spit in the dust and began to make mud out of it. Now imagine you're this blind guy. And you're hearing this question that puts you in a derogatory light. Either you sinned or your parents sinned. Either way, here you are, a blind guy, suffering the consequences of this. And then you hear somebody spit. What do you think's going to happen next? Well, he can't see any of this. But the next thing he feels is Jesus putting mud on his eyes. And then Jesus says, go wash yourself in the pool. And this guy's blind. How's he going to get there? Does he know where the pool of Siloam is? Does anybody lead him? Does he just wander around? Does he, how does he get there? We don't know. But it feels pretty lost and alone. Pretty isolated. But he goes and he finds his way and he begins to wash his face. And when he washes the mud off his eyes, he is healed. And this is a great cause for rejoicing. This man is overjoyed. He can now see. But some of the people around Jesus, the Pharisees, were not very happy. One of the things we've got to watch out for as new Christians is we don't become a Pharisee, because sometimes we come to know Christ and we find freedom and forgiveness and we find rules that bind other people. That's what Pharisees become. We find grace, we give you rules. So the Pharisees were really upset because Jesus healed on the Sabbath. And you weren't supposed to do that. But he did it anyway. And so they call the guy in, the Pharisees call him in, and they say, what has happened to you? Who did this? They're asking a blind man to identify the guy who healed him. Well, he wasn't there when he washed. He doesn't know what Jesus looks like. He says, this guy they call Jesus was the one that healed me. So they dismiss the guy. They call in his parents. They say, we want to know, is this your son? Was he born blind? And how did he get his sight? They said, he is our son. He was born blind. We don't know how he got his sight. Ask him. He's of age. You know, they didn't want to answer because they were going to get kicked out of the place too. Ask him. So they call him back. And they say, what's happened to you? We know this Jesus is a sinner, and we want you to confirm that to us. And the man said this. He said, whether he was a sinner or not, I don't know. But this thing I do know. Once I was blind, but now I see. That is a great message of hope, isn't it? Once I was blind, but now I see. I am the good shepherd, and the shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. That's a message of hope. And that's why we exist. We are the church of the good shepherd because we offer the hope of Jesus Christ to the world. That's why we're here. Hope is something everybody needs. It's one of three things, and I'll tell you the other two. In fact, one of them is this. It's compassion. I want to jump down to the 14th verse. I am the good shepherd, Jesus says. I know my own sheep, and they know me. I don't know a whole lot about farming sheep or raising sheep. I grew up around Lubbock and worked on farms some, did some with mostly with crops. I did raise one pig. I lost $20 on it. That was the end of my farming career. And the farmer said, you did really well. So anyway, just to lose $20 was really good. So I don't know really anything much about sheep farming, so I went to the master of all knowledge, and that's called Google. And I found a guy who's a sheep farmer in Virginia, and he had several lessons about sheep farming, and I want to share a couple of those with you today. First of all, he says that the job of a good shepherd is to provide for the whole flock plenty of water, food, and a safe place to stay or to be. But he goes on, now that's for the entire flock, but he says, now the success of a shepherd is the compassion they have for each individual. Compassion is the second thing that we all are looking for. We have hope. We look for hope. We need and are looking for compassion. And that's what a good shepherd church offers. Hope and compassion. Now today, we celebrate this birthday. We look backwards. We thank God that 34 years ago, there was a vision, there was a double wide, and there were people. And so thank the Lord for that. And now we've come this way. It's a beautiful facility. The church is growing. It's marvelous. There's a good spirit here. There are a lot of good things to celebrate. We remember yesterday, we celebrate today, and we look forward to tomorrow. But we can't just look forward without celebrating today and without looking back as well. So we celebrate stuff in our memory, but we're not stuck in memory. We're not stuck in yesterday. Ken Callahan had this to say about memory and yesterday and tomorrow. He said, take away memory and people are anxious. Take away hope and people are terrified. And that's pretty well true. If we don't remember yesterday with gratitude and grateful hearts and with compassion, we don't live today that way. We won't live tomorrow offering compassion to people around us. Compassion helps us let go of our own bitterness and our own anger. It helps us to let go of our resentment. It helps us to let go of grudges. It helps us to become people who are compassionate. So hope, compassion. And the third one's community. The last phrase of the 16th verse is this. The sheep will listen to my voice, and there will be one flock with one shepherd. We hear all kinds of stories about how dumb sheep are. And, I found a sermon on the internet about how one sheep went off a cliff and there were 1,500 in the flock and every one of them followed. There were 400 that died at the bottom of the thing and the other 1,100 landed on a pad and they lived. So, sheep aren't that stupid. But you get all kinds of stories about that, on how dumb they are. And what Craig Rogers, the shepherd, said was this. He said, sheep are not dumb. You just have to be smart enough to understand them. So that may be kind of the way Jesus is with us as well. People aren't dumb. I've heard of church people being compared to sheep. Well, that's not really true in most ways. In some ways it is, though, but in most ways it's not. For sheep, their greatest strength is to flock together. It's to come together. That's where they're strongest. That's where they feel the safest. That's where they're secure. Coming together in a flock is their survival mechanism. And in that way, they are really smart. That's community. People search for hope. People search for compassion. People search for community. Those are the things that motivate us and drive us to find safety for our life and to offer that to other people. This is the church of the Good Shepherd. And it's the church of the Good Shepherd because we offer to the world around us, we offer to the people around us, we offer to the community, we offer across the whole wide world hope, compassion, and community. Thank God for this church. Thank God for your life. Happy birthday, church. Amen.